Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is David Adler. I'm the chairman and founder of BizBash, and we are here to get feedback from the community. We're having a series of conversations with event organizers and event pros around the country. We've already done Washington, we've done Los Angeles, we've done New York, and now we're in Florida because all of our experiences are a little different, but we can learn from each other. So before I start, I'm going to have Ashton Pike. Ashton is going to be introducing everybody on the panel, and then we're going to start the conversation. This is a free-wielding conversation. We're going to be talking not just about business, but we want people to talk about their experiences, their hopes, and what they see about the future. And hopefully we will get a sense of ideas and innovation that you can bring to your own companies and your own lives and your own employees. So Ashton, why don't you take it away and let everybody know who's on this panel?
You got it. Thanks, David. So like David said, we really wanted to take this chance to get into the nitty gritty of the issues everyone watching is dealing with right now. This isn't just a state by state. This is a global pandemic, but we're all handling it differently. And so we're hoping that this virtual discussion can help bring event professionals insights and resources to the situation that changes so rapidly. So last week we spoke to a team from Washington, D.C., and today we're speaking to our South Florida-based group. To our listeners, if there's any pressing topics that you feel like we're missing throughout this, please go into the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of the page, and you can click Q&A and ask your questions via the plus sign on the bottom right corner. We'll save the last 15 minutes of this virtual discussion for the Q&A. So let's start by introducing our panel today. We have an amazing group of event professionals. We have Greg Zalkin, who is the CEO of Creative State Marketing, Gary Ressler, the principal of TILIA Companies, Kelly Murphy, co-founder of Events on the Loose Event Rental Provisions, Shai Tertner, president and experiential event designer at Shiraz Creative, Richard Curran, owner of Expo Convention Contractors, and finally we have Dan Cormany, PhD and lead faculty at Florida International University's Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. So we're super lucky to have a great diverse group here from throughout South Florida and from multiple different industries within the events umbrella. So we'd love to start by letting you guys just talk for a few minutes. So if we could just go around and have each of you give us an overview of basically how you're doing right now and how you've been impacted by this.
Before we start with that, let's start with Dan, who's going to give us a little bit of a briefing on what is going on in the world from an academic perspective. It's always good to have the academics chime in. So that we can have a basis of what's going on. So Dan, why don't you give us a little bit about our industry?
All right, very good. And are you seeing my slide?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We were having a little trouble
Yes.
with that earlier. This is perhaps important for us to remind ourselves that we are the second largest industry in terms of employment in the country. This is as of 2018 statistics. And business and the economy really relies on us. As you can see from these various circle graphs, 85% of businesses say their organizations prioritize sponsoring events. 90% of nonprofits rank their events as very important. Matter of fact, I just heard on the news maybe 5 minutes ago that 39% of associations are really struggling right now because of the coronavirus. If we go beyond just the corporate world, meetings alone provide $259 billion in labor income annually. And that doesn't even include the wedding planners. We have another nearly 40,000 people in wedding planning, doing about 30% of 22.4 million weddings. And something that Richard will appreciate, trade shows worldwide account for about $2.5 trillion in business each year. So we are not just suffering individually, but a lot of businesses are relying on us too. Put together a list of things that have been canceled, large things that have been canceled. You probably have seen most of these. The three at the bottom are most disturbing because those are all fall dates.
Thank you, Dan.
We can't see it.
Thank you, Dan. We're not seeing your map. So
Okay.
why don't we move on? We'll come back to you, okay?
All right, very good.
Okay. Let's first start with Richard. Let's talk about what's going on with your company, what you're doing, and how you're bringing in revenue now based on this whole new paradigm. You're actually going in a few minutes to work on the convention center. Talk about that.
Thanks. So, yeah, currently, trade shows, all the face-to-face meetings have all canceled from now through the summer. So we were at pretty much a dead standstill, business-wise, just looking at when we can start meeting again face-to-face. That's when, our book of business will kick back off. It actually was a very fast turnaround. Within the last week, a decision was made, executed, and turned Miami Beach Convention Center into a 450-room hospital. So it was literally, by fire. It was. I met with them on Tuesday the 7th, and at 8 a.m. on Tuesday the 8th, we were just shuttling equipment over there and began to build. Luckily, we had support from the local union that could supply us with labor to get this produced. And in a matter of 48 hours, we had 450 rooms built in the convention center. They've been going behind the structures and entering all of basically building a real functioning hospital with all the data, the power, the lines, the water, the air to each room. It's pretty incredible. And I think that this week on 60 Minutes, they're going to be covering it as well. So look out for that. So besides that, that's been the only major project going on. We have a small group of people that we're assisting a local plastics company in doing some assembly of face shields. So we have about 8 people that are just helping out with assembly on that. So that, and then the other things that we're doing is, it's been a real shift, a paradigm shift, if you will, in what we do, because, as I mentioned before, we are the company that facilitates all the stuff. We're not content creators. We're not, we don't do media. We do the hard goods. We do the physical printing. We do the manufacturing of exhibits. We do the assembly. We do the movement of the materials on site. So it literally is at a standstill. So some of the things that we've been looking at is taking the skills and talents of the things that we have and the abilities and applying it to other functions. And we're actually we're looking at commercial development as far as like decoration and just the same thing that we would do in a trade show booth, where we would put a high-end look and feel when somebody enters a booth. We can have that same application go towards a commercial retail space. So we're now looking in that direction, and we have a couple of projects that are in work right now. So that's been something, but as far as what we do on a regular monthly basis as to what we're doing now is just night and day. So yeah, it's been quite a shift.
Good luck to you with all that, with that shift.
Have you kept your whole workforce on staff? Or did you furlough people or lay people off?
No, immediately we went into a furlough the end of last month, and now we've just been going back call by project. We still have probably 80% of our team in furlough, where the rest of them, just a minor amount of people are working. And the team that we have assembling, they're actually loaned out employees. That's not even going through our payroll. So it's literally just a very minimal crew keeping the ship moving, so to say. So, but I will say this though, even though we're in a time of furlough where we're at a company wide, myself included, my team is looking at the bad within the good within the bad. My group of people here at Expo, the family that we have here, has been the most incredible team. Daily people check in with me wanting to do anything, and they're not asking for money. They're not asking to come back for work. They want to all be part of keeping the company going forward and getting past this hump. So a big shout out to my Expo family and all the support they've been giving. It's heartwarming.
I might
so
add.
Let's move on to Dan. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that the work that you're doing is so incredibly important right now, too. One of the slides that I was going to show that apparently got lost somewhere is that Florida is not supposed to climax on our apex, I guess is the word we want, on coronavirus until May 5th. So what you're doing right now is really important to all of South Florida.
Yep. And it just shows the amazing bit that the event industry can pivot to help this effort in major ways. Why don't we move on to Greg? What is going on in your world, and how have you reacted and responded to this crisis?
Great. Thanks, David, and thank you all for tuning in. We're all kind of in the same boat, and I think what our perspective is looking this. One of our clients is Red Bull, and they said this is a pit stop. They said, this is a life race, a business race, and they said we're taking the car into a pit stop. We are retooling the engine, we're changing the tires, and we're looking to join the race again in 4 to 6 months. So from our agency, same thing. We're a staffing agency, experiential agency, and strategy. We're moving a lot to strategy because every brand we work with has to rethink marketing. So we are very heavy. Luckily, we have a whole strategy team, a design team in-house, and we're going to our current clients and saying, hey, we're going to come out of this at some point, right? 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year. You got to be prepared. It's a new game. So we've been really focusing on that and really kind of enjoying that exploration.
Have you been able to actually solicit business?
No, we haven't even tried. We're going to our clients, our existing relationships, and saying, here's the budget. We know budgets are pulling back, but what's the future look like? How is it going to be different? We do a lot of production of big festivals. My partner and I are involved in Coachella and Preakness. So we're looking at how do those events change, and how can we be that partner, that right hand of the brand to think about the size of venues and capacity is going to change. How do you deal with emergencies? What's the staffing? What does food service look like? I don't see pass hors d'oeuvres with people touching things with their fingers moving forward. How does bartending change? So we're looking at kind of from inside and out, field marketing and experiential, touching events and touching consumers. How does that all change? At the same time, to what Richard was saying, is you got to cut, right? We've cut about 75% of our staff as well, unfortunately, of our family. We're trying to find small projects for them to assist them and keep them going and get funding. But what we're doing is cutting and planning for the future.
Are you able to get any assistance yet? Have you been able to, and I'm going to ask this to everybody, has it been really slow and frustrating, or is it smooth and well done?
Very frustrating. And what I've found from kind of polling and a lot of these calls is the bigger the bank, the longer the wait. So I know a lot of people that abandoned their banks and went to small community banks and got immediate funding, which is kind of not fair, right? But almost 90% of the people in the industry I've spoken to.
That's a good point for everybody listening.
They literally left Chase, SunTrust, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and went to the community bank of their neighborhood. And it makes sense, right? They get a quarter or a tenth of the applications.
Really? So, Gary, let's go to you next.
Thank you.
We'll circle back with everybody.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Let's hear what's going on in your world. The venue side is definitely under threat, and I'm curious to hear how you guys are reacting. I don't know if you also do F&B, but caterers are absolutely the workhorses of our industry and are having struggles as well. So anything you can bring on that score as well would be helpful.
So we don't do F&B. We are strictly a venue, and then we do produce events as well. So we have the benefit of running a very tight ship and a very small crew. So we haven't had to lay anyone off yet, but the venue business is decimated. We have every event that's been, scheduled through the summer has been canceled. We took what seems to be an unprecedented measure and simply have our own COVID policy, which is reschedule if you'd like, but we're providing full refunds for anybody who asks for it, which essentially is everyone. So we were born out of crisis. So the venue grew out of the .com boom bust back in 2002 when we had a banking client that had vacated the space and nobody was renting space at the time in downtown Miami. So this is sort of our comfort zone. Right now we're looking at how the future will change within a venue setting. Hand washing stations at the entrance. And I think that's a short to medium term solution. I'm on the Red Bull train when it comes to the future of our country and our habits. I know that this is new for us and a first time in the United States since for 100 years. But Asia went through this with SARS, with MERS, and we saw them slowly but surely reemerge into an event-based culture. Art Basel Hong Kong is one of the largest art fairs in the world. So I have an optimistic view of it, but I am not putting on rose-colored glasses either. This is a long haul for us as an industry, and certainly in the venue business where we depend on people gathering together. It's the real deal. But we're taking this time to look at how we retool and what the future means for gatherings of large sizes.
How do you feel about venues that are kind of underfinanced, though? I mean, this is a cash flow race. What advice do you give to other venue owners that are sort of not as cash rich, didn't save all their cash for this kind of rainy day moment that really has happened?
I wish I had a silver bullet answer. As property owners, we also are, keenly aware of how this hits every tenant and every industry. I was talking to one of our tenants the other day. It's one thing for us to work with a few tenants having trouble, but this is the world sort of falling apart. Everyone's facing the same issues. Everyone's facing the same responses from banks about the PPP. Everyone's facing the same delays. We are hopeful that those delays will shorten. But to put it in perspective, to Greg's point, the bank that we applied through for our business typically accepts and processes 70 SBA loan applications a year. Last week they had 7,000. So, it's a numbers game, and it's a lot about relationships. So for property owners or venue owners, I would say strengthen those relationships. Make sure that you can have those difficult conversations with bankers, with your mortgage holder, because there are conversations you need to have. And I'd say have them early. I haven't started having these conversations in January. Mind you, February, banks went very quiet. So there's very little we can do now until they are settled in where their future is going. So it's a little bit of a cluster.
Yep. Shai, you have had a lot of experience globally. How are you seeing this world, and how are you feeling about what's going on?
Sure. Well, in the beginning, it felt like a roller coaster ride. It was fast, and it was coming at you, and I just had to grab the seat and figure out how to deal with my emotions on this. There was a lot of fear, and there was doubt, and there was a lot of uncertainty. And as time progressed, we found a rhythm. We immediately shifted all of our efforts towards digital and virtual. In 2017, we started a digital and brand marketing department. And so the moment we saw the event starting to cancel, we shifted our efforts towards that and starting to offer our clients solutions for the larger events that were going to happen in 3-4 months, and seeing how we can make them virtual. And while doing that, we even came together with a platform that we're developing, proprietary technology platform for virtual events. And so I can't talk about it too much, but that's something that inspires me and my team and our creativity. And so what I can suggest to owners of companies or executives is to really, we have to really think quick as we do during events and find a quick solution and not wait too long. Because in 2008, when the recession hit, I made a decision to keep my team, all my team members on, and I took a loan in order to do that, knowing that that's what I'm getting into, and I'm still paying for that loan. And so, unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, I learned from that lesson, and I took measures immediately. I just had to. I felt like this should be the focus, and everything else right now we need to preserve for that focus. And so all of our resources needs to go there. And as tough as it was and emotional as it was, and it was, I was really not looking forward for the next day to have these tough conversations. But I did, and we did, my business partner and I and my other business partner, and there are big conversations now with brands because they're looking for solutions. They're looking for the virtual. They're looking for that something that is beyond Zoom or beyond Blue Jeans, and something that can showcase our creativity as artists, as marketers, and provide more brand integrity to what we're going to put out there and the messages and the information that we need to share in the next 6 months to a year. And then how do we even take that and accompany live events when we're able to actually have larger live events?
So let me go to Kelly first, and then I want to go back around on talking about the future as well. But Kelly, you've been in the industry for a long time. We've known each other a long time.
Yes.
What are you seeing? And you're in the physical business of events. It is hard to pivot to virtual in rentals and things like that. So how are you guys coping?
It is. I think probably Friday the 13th was my D-Day. So I usually don't believe in that, but it came true this time. But we had to make decisions very quickly about what we were going to do. We were still coming off a very busy season, fortunately. I think if this happened in the summertime, we'd be having a different conversation. So the good news is we came off a good season. We had to make decisions, and some of the solutions were for me to find alternative work environments for some of my team members rather than just putting them out and laying them off, which we were successful with. And we kept, I'm going to say we have about 60% at a reduced salary right now to keep the business, the inventory intact. We had a lot of cleaning up to do as well. But we closed down for a couple of weeks now so we could all kind of take a break and revisit and how we can come out of this. I relate this a little bit to 9/11, not totally because we're all in it, the whole world. But I think on the event side, the larger events that we're used to doing are going to take a very long time to come back. But I think the intimate events, in people's homes, the catering, I think will come back. It's not going to necessarily be in the venues, or it might be in small venues. People are going to be a little still mistrusting. That's what I'm finding. I mean, I see people and we're all kind of looking at each other. Do you have it? Can I get near you? So it's going to take a while for us to overcome that fear and that level of distrust that's kind of come into us, not by choice. It's just by what's happened to us. But I think that will come back. The personal and social gatherings will come sooner. than the bigger events. But I agree with Greg's version of the Red Bull strategy. It is really, we're going to have to take a break. We're going to have to retool, get the tires taken care of, get the engine redone, and figure out how we're going to come out of this. I don't have a crystal ball. Wish I did. But I think, my first response was to my team, because they didn't ask for this either. And so I wanted to make sure that they're okay. And I keep in touch with them on a weekly basis.
How do you do that? Can you go into this is another thing. How are people are working remotely? How are you motivating? How are you able to do your work? Do you have any tips on that?
I mean, we have a small administrative staff, sales staff, and the rest, the biggest staff is our operations team. But I'm posing questions to them of, what do you think we could do with this part of our business? We have a lot of catering equipment. What can we do with that? Or we have a lot of furnishing. What can we do with that? Tell me what your thoughts are. So they come back to me. I email them in smaller groups, maybe not necessarily the entire team. And then I check with them via text is probably the easiest way, or WhatsApp. And I talk to them as a group or individually. And it's inspiring because, people, like as Rich said, they don't want to be sitting at home. They want to come to work. And I'm having to say, no, you can't come in. So I know that the desire is there to do something to keep us going. It's just a question of what is that magic answer. I don't have that yet, but we're working on it.
Great. Let's go in terms of, before we get into the future, let's go to the present. And I'm going to ask all of you about how you're working with your teams. What advice do you give to the people listening to motivate people and to keep people engaged in getting the job done? Greg, I'm sure you have a point of view on this.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, it's hard, right? Because we had a very close-knit office, cooking together, socializing together. And what we've done, we do a happy hour once a week. So Zoom happy hour, and not work, just how you guys doing? What's going on? How can we help each other? We're a family, I always say a business is only the staff, really, unless you're a technology company, it's your team. So we've been doing that, and helping them get assistance, and then talking about the future. I think the most important thing that I've seen, actually, and I've talked to some other friends in different industries, is clarity and transparency. Don't sugarcoat anything. We're very open with our team about our business and our future and our plan. The more you don't communicate, I think the worse. So we're literally email.
Greg, if you're going to lay somebody off, or if you're going to have that hard conversation, what is sort of the reaction to people now? Is it? I've heard people say that sometimes the person that's doing the firing or doing the laying off the furloughs is actually more emotional than the person they're kind of expecting this.
I mean, yes. I feel like I'm in tears right now. I mean, I love my team. I feel like they're my brothers, my sisters, my parents, my kids. I love them. I love seeing them every day. I love interacting with them. So it's been amazing that a lot of them said, I'll work for free. I understand, because it's like Kelly was saying, it's different from anything else. We're not doing it because you're not a good employer. We don't like you. We love you. It's just that we're trying to save the business so we can bring you back. So people have been amazing. So giving, so texting me, how are you doing? And I'm like, you're asking me? So I can only say I'm very, very lucky.
Is everyone else having the same experience?
Pretty much. Yes. Yeah. I think when we had our meeting on the 16th, individually with each person, I almost couldn't get words out, and all my team that I did speak to that I had to deliver the news to, they were comforting me to a degree and saying, they understand and it's not my fault. And at least, it didn't make it any better, but I I just had such a hard time because we're all our small companies, small businesses like family. These are people you see more than your family.
Yeah, we talked about there being a silver lining. And I think that for me, the silver lining has really been the way our team has looked out for each other. I mean, I've had employees come to me and offer to take pay cuts to make sure that nobody else was affected. And really, this has really helped motivate a lot of people to really charge their creative batteries. We have employees coming up with great ideas and great initiatives on the venue side and others as well. But really, I think the way that this has brought out so much good out in people at a time where we are already so divided in the outside world. I think that may be the silver lining here.
I agree.
Shai?
Yeah. I got a text this morning from one of my associates, and she was asking me how I'm feeling, and I was very honest with her. I said to her, I have good days, and I have days that are not so good, and it doesn't so much have to be or to do with anything specific. It's just like working from home as a CEO. I lost my territory. Like, I don't know. I lost my footing. I was not prepared to making this transition. So what does that mean for me? And what is my responsibility now? And how do I really structure my day? And, to lead in a time of so much uncertainty, I do what I can. I don't have a crystal ball, and I have common sense, and I've been through 9/11. I've been through 2008, and then I had another thingy in 2015, personally or company wide, and so that prepared me, but it never can really prepare you. So yeah, I'm touched by the fact that they're checking up on me, and I'm checking up on them, and one of my employees right now is not feeling well. I don't think it's anything related, but you never know. And I'm asking, can I get you anything?
Is everyone prepared to have somebody on their team or friends who have got the virus? What do you do? How do you cope with that?
I think offer help
it's
as
a
much
tough thing.
to the best of our ability. It's definitely testing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, because this applies to you too, Shai, we do a lot of staffing, right? You guys do a lot of staffing. We do a lot of staffing. So we've actually got a lot of projects recently are like, I don't want to do it. Do I need the revenue? But, I want the revenue. I want to work with the client, but do I want to put my team out there and staff a project? Like, we were talking to FEMA, and we're talking to, you too, the same thing, feeding people. It's like, what do you balance? Success of your business versus the health of an employee and the guilt and the...
At the moment, the question was, should we work from the office or work from home? I said, let's work from home. Let's work remotely. Do not take the risk. And we did it. But yes, I think sharing emotions, real and true emotions, because we're all going through this. So I'm having conversations with employees, but also with clients about how they're feeling and how they're dealing with it emotionally, because they have their own set of fears and worries, or just even mourning. 2 weeks ago, there was all this discussion about mourning, and like, how does this relate to me? And I started reading about it, and I saw that I'm following the 7 stages of mourning, and so that's a surprise.
Right.
Unpleasant
Rich, I know
surprise.
you have to leave. Rich, do you have any comments on this? And then I want to move on to the future.
Just echoing everybody's sentiments on the team. It's been, what is a little crazy and unique though is that we do have quite a few clients and events that were successfully postponed. So this poses something a little different. So in the immediate, there's no physical work done, but we have a whole lot of administrative work in changing events and changing layouts and changing, exhibitor manuals and, shifting customer accounts from, something that was going to happen in April back to something that's going to happen now in October. So it's kind of a juggling act right now where we have zero revenue coming in. And so there's no funds. And, without this, the PPP going through, like that's literally going to be something pivotal to get the team back, to get them to work. So, because we have work to do right now, but right now there's just nothing inbound that we can, rely on. And then looking at that, it's balancing spending the money to make these adjustments when we also don't quite know when that is. So those events that have postponed, those aren't 100% either. So I'm about to invest in payroll to adjust an event and do administrative work and do physical work in the warehouse to then have our dates be pushed back even further and those secondary postponements. So it's a real juggling act going on right now. And, it's tough because there is work to do and I'm dying to get my team back in here to do it. And it's just a matter of getting the money in hand so that way we can get the payroll up and running again. And again, I have an amazing team that everybody has been asking what they can do. They know that there's no payroll coming, and the same thing that I just have to tell them to wait because we can't be just I can't have everyone come work for free as much as that would be great, but we can't do that. So we're right at that cusp of getting back to work with a whole lot of work to do. And David, you mentioned about going forward, like what are we doing in the future to prepare? And we are definitely looking at everything through a different lens now. Business is not as usual when we get back. We are going to be looking at, different terms, different, everybody already starts with different language now. Now the word pandemic is in every single contract. How do we gauge, what is billable, what's not billable, work being done for deposits, things like that. So we have a whole new set of steps ahead of us now for getting back to business as usual. And, looking at
every
things
one of
more
these
practical.
Every one of these things we've had force majeure come up, and Dan has been talking about that. And we're trying to find language that people are becoming the new common language. And I think that's going to be an issue that the whole industry needs to deal with. I want to ask Gary, going forward, if we have this distancing issue, how can a venue make money and justify revenue when everybody's going to be 6 feet apart? I mean, how do we even think about this?
You have to think beyond it. You can't think about it. I mean, it's not possible to run a special event venue business while social distancing is occurring, right? One person per elevator. There's just too many logistical issues. So we have to think past it. We have to be thinking ahead of the game. I'm literally looking at what were the reactions in China after the after MERS, after SARS. What timelines were they restricted on before they opened up? And that's how I'm working on planning, because ultimately at this point it's a planning game.
What did you learn? Give us the primer.
I'm still working on it. I don't have anything definitive. Literally, it's here on this screen as I'm sort of trying to work out a timeline for us and what it means and how we plan to really be operational again. I don't want to start signing contracts like anybody else that ultimately it's just more work to return money, to postpone. So I think we're all in that same boat. But for me, I'm looking to the fact that while it's new here in the U.S., this is not something that's new to the world. Trying to learn from others' experience.
If I may,
go ahead.
I think that we can have a role in writing the book of what's the next and writing the next chapter in this book, because we all have experience in our own field and in the structure of events, that we know what's necessary in order to keep our guests safe and our clients' liability as small as possible. And so if we start putting together guidelines as a society, as a group of professionals, we can help the states bring things back to normality faster, because we know the way events go. We know how the flow is. We know how to create flow of events that might be healthier for our guests. And so I feel like we have that responsibility to do that. I go back to that Gavin Newsom story and about California and opening the state and doing it like a dimmer slowly. And so we have this time to create that for Florida, and help as much as we can the state to define what's the next chapter and how can we do that in order to bring live events, which we all want live events to go back to some kind of a normality. So the sooner we do that, then the more we help the state, we can make that happen faster.
So take a look. I wrote a story on BizBash about what I'm calling the hub and spoke method, where you're going to see network venues that'll be banding together. So you'll have one event, like a main stage in one venue, and they'll have lots of small venues that will be able to share using the Zoom technologies, but having people more face-to-face as a way of gathering lots of people, but in small, intimate groups. And after all, the whole purpose of big events for a while was to create intimacy. Now we can actually create intimacy by creating smaller events and tying them together through technology. So I don't think all is lost. I think that I want to use that as an idea starter to let everyone else be building on that. Because we're in the greatest era of innovation right now in our industry, and we just have to be brainstorming all the time. So my message to everyone out there is to have brainstormers and listen to the person that's just delivering stuff and understanding what's going on in the world, because the ideas are from everywhere. If you just do it by yourself at senior management, you're dead. Mm-hmm. Greg, you're about to say something.
Yeah, totally. I actually am really sad and really excited at the same time. I'm a big idea guy, and I have literally a file called Big Ideas. And even like Gary, like there's so many businesses around venues that should pop up in the next 6 months. Separate areas for people that have a temperature, different ways to distribute alcohol. Is there scanning machines? Kelly and I were just talking about her trip to Asia, and they scan you, like you walk through a big unit that scans you as you go into a venue. So there's so many supplemental businesses, and that's what's been driving me crazy, is that I'm trying to save people employees, but I'm also like, I feel like I should have a big idea today that's going to save all of this. And I really kind of, anyone listening that's a business owner, I think you got to set a plan. We don't, like Shai was saying, is like, we don't know when this is going to end, but you got to set a plan. Our plan on no business for the rest of the year. We know that there will be, but we're planning our budget that, let's pretend there's no business until 2021. How are we going to deal with that? And then how are we going to invest in ourselves and pivot? I'm looking at medical supply businesses, so that I still could use my staff, but use those opportunities to put people back to work. So I think it's also, we did as a team, we said we're not going to talk about the bad anymore. We're not going to get on conference calls and talk about things canceling, the rate of corona. We are going to talk about the future. So and it's a hard thing to do. Sometimes you don't want to get out of bed. But one funny thing is that I've been exercising every day. I feel amazing when I exercise. So everyone get out there.
Yes. And I meditate every day and I exercise every day or every other day. And so it helps a lot. And we live in a state that is, the weather is mostly great. So going for walks with the dogs, that's the joy of my day. So
this is the time to invest in yourselves. Mm-hmm. This is it. Listen to these kinds of, go on, talk to people, I know that when I was working with, after 9/11 in New York City, we put together a group of 300 people in the event industry. And because of that group of getting to know each other in the bunker, 20 years later, we're still giving business to each other. We're still helping each other. It's the relationships that are forming now that are going to be critical because all the bullshit's gone. You have to be real. And so that's what's so great about this time. I know Rich has got to leave. So do you have any final comments that you want to make in terms of inspiration?
No, yeah,
or advice to
I just
people that
wanted
are
to say,
listening?
yeah, thank you for having me today. Sorry I have to cut out, but yeah, we are still working on that hospital right now, and I have a meeting I need to get to about that. We have a few more days till that's turned over to the healthcare people. So yeah, I mean, hopefully I can see every one of you again, and hopefully we can, the end of this year into next year, have lots of projects together. So thanks for having me. Take care.
Good luck.
Great. Now let's turn it over to Ashton, who is going to is looking at the chats and things like that about questions.
Yes, we have a ton of really great questions. So let's kick it off. First, we're going to do a polling. So it should pop up on your screen. And the first question is, have you applied for any government relief? And the second question is, when is the earliest confirmed in-person event that you're working on? So we're just polling our audience today. We want to hear from you guys, and we want to see what's going on in your world currently. And the polling question is preventing me from, there it is, okay. Okay, first question. Why do you think that larger events will take a long time to come back? And I want to loop that in with another question I found was interesting of indoor events versus outdoor events. And do you think there will be a difference of when, like timing wise, when those both come back?
Who wants to jump on that?
Well, I'll jump on that one.
Okay.
The indoor events, obviously you have your capacities the way they are now. I think in the future, they're going to be cut in half. In venues and restaurants, if you have a 100-person capacity in a restaurant, you're going to go down to 50. If you're in the venue, you have to allow this space for people to move away from people if they choose to. So those jam-packed trying to get through the crowds, it's just not feasible until there is either a vaccine or a solution to cure the illness. But the outdoor events you would think would be okay, except that when people are moving and the wind is blowing, people are a little concerned about that space again. So, in outdoor events, we've usually had 6 square feet per person. I think it's going to be 36 square feet per person. In any event that's enclosed, there are people, if they're in a fence line or, even just an outdoor space. It's just going to take a while. Go ahead, Dan. Did you want to say something?
We might also have concerns about airfare too, or air travel.
Right.
And for larger events, getting somewhere. PCMA did a survey on this, and they found that at this point, 48%, which I thought was amazingly low, 48% of the people are hesitant to travel right now. So larger events are going to be contained somewhat by the ability to get there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that outdoor events might have a better possibility to come back earlier. There are ways to brand masks and make them look cool, and to brand gloves and or outfits to protect you, and make it more thematic and just again dictate what the next chapter is, and how do we do it, and how do we do it fun and cool to the best of our ability. Indoors, I agree, it will be a smaller groups, and we'll need to find that balance, but I don't know what that balance is yet. I think.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was just kind of on what you said and David said. We're really thinking and seeing that we all have to work together more. We have to not merge, but why do I need to fly to LA for a site visit? Who's my partner in LA that I trust? So we're looking at that as well as there doesn't need to be 500 companies that are all competing. We all really care about each other and care about the industry. And we have to set that tone almost, to somehow kind of partner work and know what other people do and help them out, and same thing vice versa.
Ashton, do you want to go to the next question? Yeah, great idea.
Yes.
Ashton?
We want to know from the group, have any of your events pivoted to a virtual event? And do you see future events on the books switching to virtual because of corporations not spending money?
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
Who has that one, Shai?
So the second part of the question was, do you see future events on the books switching to virtual because of corporations not spending money?
Okay, I'll start.
I think it's a safety issue now. I don't know if it's about money at this point. And yeah, I mean, I think, the virtual events for sure, we do a lot of nonprofit galas. Those are all going virtual. But nonprofits are suffering too, and they don't know where their future lies. So this is really, a really pivotal moment for everyone. I think virtual will certainly grow, but at the end of the day, I know I'm dying to see people and hang out with people. This will last as long as it has to, but I think people will revert to old habits quickly.
I can tell you that all of our conversations are about shifting, not all, but 90% of our conversations are about shifting live events into virtual events. And I'm not talking about Blue Jeans or Zoom-like events. I'm talking about something that is much more experiential, something that has brand integrity, something that has analytics that you can really learn from your viewers and share information in such a way that it will go global faster. So yes, I do see that as a necessity for the next 3, 4, 5 months, even until the end of the year. And then suddenly it will start a little bit, maybe before the end of the year, live events will start coming back, and that virtual tool will work in a parallel way towards the return of live events and continue being there. And the way we see the virtual aspect of events will be different. Like the way our grandmothers right now are Zooming with everyone, or they know how to send memes and gifts, and which, 2 weeks ago they didn't. And so I think there's a major shift right now with the way we look at technology and our communication and our engagement. And I think we need to look at it as part of our lives for the next 6, 8, 12 months.
Dan, you were about to jump out of your chair.
Yeah, I was. Well, PCMA in that same survey asked about virtual events, and the real question was, will virtual events cannibalize live events? And 62% of the respondents said no, they will not. We saw a surge in virtual events after 9/11, and there was predictions that live events were going to die, that everything was going to go virtual. And what we have found in studies is that virtual events actually encourage attendance at live events. So it may be that once we get past this virtual event stage, we'll be doing a lot more in the way of hybrid events.
Yeah,
I agree. So I want to start by saying this. I'm a huge fan of live events. I think that the human interaction is the most important thing that we have, and this is the best proof to that. I mean, how much we crave the human contact. That said, the technology that we have in our hands right now versus what we had in 2001 you can compare. We have augmented reality, we have virtual reality. There's so many elements that we didn't have back then. And not that I ever thought that virtual will take over live events, and I don't think it will now, but for a short time, in order to ensure safety of people, there will be, if there will be live events, they will be probably in small format, keeping the physical distancing. And that's how I think, that's what I think. And that's where right now, as eventers, as experiential marketers, we need to think of how to do that. What do we offer our clients?
Let's take one more question. Ashton, let's do one more question, and then we'll do a little go around at the end. And I have a final comment to it that I'd like to make as well.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And I do want to go ahead and share the poll responses. Thank you to everyone who gave us your answers. So on the first question of when is the earliest confirmed in-person event you're working on, it seems like the majority of people are working on events between August through October, with the highest being in October at 21% of our audience today. And for the second poll of have you applied for any government relief, the majority of our audience today has either said yes, and it was difficult to navigate, or no, and they do not plan to, with no being 36% and yes being 30%. And for our final question, I'd love to end on a more fun note and just ask everyone, how you're staying inspired, whether you're watching your favorite movie for the 50th time, or you've taken up a hobby, or you're pages deep in Pinterest. We would just love to know how you guys are staying positive and optimistic and inspired through all this.
I'll start. For me, working out, meditating, being outdoors in the sun, whenever it's possible, and walking the dogs, like really long walks. Movie nights. That's good for me. Oh, and inspired. I'm listening to, I love audibles. So I listen to a lot of books on that program.
That's great. Who wants to go next? Gary?
I'm flexing my creative muscles. I had my 12-year-old teach me how to use her sewing machine, and I'm making masks.
Wow.
I've got three different styles I'm working on, and so I'm making masks. I was at the grocery store the other day, and there was no toilet paper, flour, rice, or beans, but there were plenty of devotional candles. So I'm trying to be creative while to keep my mind off of the misery.
That's great. Who else? Who's next? Dan?
I've discovered sitting in the sun. Sorry.
Take a breather.
I finally have stopped. I shut the computer off at 5 and sit outside for at least 2 hours to get fresh air, finally, after all this time. But the other thing I'm focusing on, and Greg, we're going to welcome you to join us shortly, is Feeding South Florida has been my other passion. It's not necessarily creative, but I feel it's a functional thing that I can do to help. And they're under a tremendous burden to feed so many more people. So I'm doing my best to get the word out and assist them in any way possible. And of course, I recruited Greg to be on our board as well. So that's been my creative outlet.
That's
I just heard
Florida? Feeding South Florida?
Feeding South Florida.
Feeding South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a report in that from Gladys, our friend Gladys, that there are many reports on food being thrown away. Can we team up to create a supply chain to help food banks that are overwhelmed? Kelly, is that something that you know about?
There is a challenge with it. I mean, the food banks will take the food. It's just a matter of whether it's going to be purchased or if it's cheaper to throw it away, according to some of the ag. So they can take it. Food banks can take it. They have the trucking. They have the logistics. They have it all. But they can't pay fair market value. They have to pay pennies on the dollar as they're a nonprofit. So I think there's a little misconception, but we are trying to close the gap. Feeding America is stepping in to to take that conversation and turn it around from what the media reports to what is the reality. So definitely you can volunteer, though.
So, Greg, tell us your new passion.
You know what? I've been calling. I have 16,000 people in my phone, my database, and I haven't talked to half of them in years. So I've been finding a lot of passion and inspiration from talking to people and helping them and each other, kind of opening up this line of communication. Anyone that knows me is I'm a workaholic. I work ridiculous amount of hours, and now I'm seeing my family, and I'm taking walks, and I'm connecting with people I really love. So it's almost like this is a reset, right? The environment's cleaning up, the air quality's getting better. I'm calling people I haven't talked to in so long. I'm cleaning out email boxes. So that for me is so cathartic and exciting. Even this, I want to work with each of these people more. Like Kelly and I had a great call yesterday. Everyone on this call it's just about getting away from email and text and picking the phone up and getting outside.
Great. Dan?
I agree with Greg. I have reconnected with a number of people. Some of them I haven't talked to in 40 years. And it's been a wonderful time to reconnect and see how they're doing. And you find that some people you just pick up with right where you left off 30, 40 years ago. And that's been wonderful. When I'm brain dead, my go-to is Perry Mason. I watch the old Perry Mason shows.
That's great. Great. Let me just tell you quickly what I've been doing. I've been taking a wine course. Actually, I'm drinking wine right now, and so I'm like living and breathing wine and learning about it and learning how to taste wine and things like that, which I never had time to do. And I'm reading some classics as a group. Like I've been reading Madame Bovary, and the ideas that you get from reading something like that for the event industry is unbelievable, because their descriptions of what happened in the events in those years are amazing. So we learn more from fiction than we can possibly learn from like reading the news, not watching the president's briefing and spending time doing other things. So it is a time that we change up everything. So let's just go around like a 30-second comment from everybody on advice you give to people that are listening on how to cope with this. And what lessons have you learned? Kelly, do you want to start?
Well, I think, and Shai talked about it earlier, is understanding that we are and have been going through these stages of mourning, of grief, and it's okay. And yes, we're supposed to be strong as leaders or as individuals, but understand what your psyche and your body is telling you and react to it in a positive way and look at the bright side of it if you can. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom, but there's also, as everybody's just discussed, there's a lot of good things. There's a lot of good coming out of people, and take that and take heart in that, and just stay the course as best you can.
Great. Gary, this is like the Brady Bunch, by the way. Gary,
I'm sorry, for the future. You broke up on the question.
Oh, just like your final moment of inspiration, what you've learned from this that you'll obviously you learn how to sew, but like what is the big takeaway that you would give advice to you 20 years from now?
Communicate. Keep lines of communication open with everyone you never expected you needed to.
Right. Dan?
I would say the same thing. My lesson has been in connecting with those people that I had not heard from or seen for years. Many are not in events, some are, but just the inspiration that I get. And I've been going through those same stages that Shai mentioned. I had one day that I was just extremely anxious, just couldn't quite calm down. And those kind of calls do a wonder in helping you get grounded again. So I value those. I'd also mention I hope this is not a commercial note, a book called Multi-Hub Meetings may be inspirational for all of us now, because it is talking about the very thing that David has been advocating of a hub and in places that have supplemental activities. But it's much more than that, and I've gotten a lot of good ideas from that too.
Great. Shai?
I think this is a really good opportunity to learn about ourselves. Like, this is really good time because I'm at my dining table in front of my screen, and I'm spending most of my day here by myself. And, with all these emotions, with all, the uncertainty, we have an opportunity to really learn about ourselves and see, is there a better way of doing us? Is there a better way of looking at us and what do I want for myself moving forward? And
yeah,
I think those are good questions right now.
Great. Greg?
Yeah, one, I want to say anyone that needs help, please reach out. I think we're a community, and this can't be the end of it. So, my information's available, and I think everyone here would do the same. Two, got to have a plan. Even if the plan changes every week, I see, like Shai was saying, is like we used to have a whole team, and we're in an office, and you sit at your desk, you get your coffee, you go through your daily schedule. Get your schedule together, get your plan, even if it's a week plan, a month plan, because it'll help you so much better. I at the beginning was going all over the place, and now I have my system. My wife's teaching 3 kids, and we have school going in, 9 classes a day in one room, and we have mine going the other. And the other thing too, I know everyone's, money's tough now, but try to pay your vendors. I know there's a lot of vendors, that have done work and are waiting to pay people. If you can, now again, it's a tough subject right now. Try to keep our community whole, because our vendors make us what we are.
Great, thanks. Ashton?
I would just say that it's been really inspiring and empowering to watch the community come together. To kind of echo what Greg just said and what Gary mentioned earlier, of just seeing competitors break down walls and really collaborate. I feel like they're becoming collaboration artists, as David always says. And I think it's been beautiful. I think the human element that has been, very apparent in this situation has been truly inspiring. And I would just, encourage everyone to continue breaking down those walls, be over communicative with each other. We're all in this together, and, that doesn't single anybody out. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I want to end on a letter that I received from Richard Adius, who is one of the top conference planners around the world. But I want to first start with my background. When I was a kid, I did Outward Bound when I was 16 years old. And I ended up staying with them, and I was on the board. And I loved Outward Bound because it gives you a sense that you're in the wilderness and you have to figure stuff out. And I heard a great lecture once on Ernest Shackleton, who had his crew was completely abandoned almost in the Antarctic for a long, long time, and he successfully was able to navigate getting them out. And part of the rules that he set was that to be a great leader, you also have to learn how to celebrate everything. And we are in the celebration business in many cases. So we should think of what we do as a tool of leadership and not just a nice to have. And that in this letter I just got from Richard Adius, he talks about how, out for a moment, I want everyone to reflect on a few days ago in Wuhan, the Chinese city where this crisis originated. After 11 weeks of a total lockdown, Wuhan inhabitants were finally allowed to leave their homes and to gradually resume normal life. But more importantly, after one day of return to normalcy, what happened? What did the people of Wuhan do? They came together, certainly with masks and certainly with respecting distances, to attend an event. They watched all together the illumination of the city's skyscrapers, bridges, and followed the giant mapping projection which captured their imagination and allowed them to dare to dream once again. This is the power of what our industry can do. We translate dreams into reality. We make people happy. We build platforms to share, to communicate, to exchange, to inspire, to move to bring everyone together towards a brighter future. Nothing, no person, no virus can destroy these dreams and stop us from doing what we do best with passion. So let's keep our industry one of the most beautiful professions on this earth. Let's power forward to continue to inspire millions of young people around the world who endeavor to work in this field. Sooner than we think, we will again find ourselves behind this. Thank everybody for attending and hope that you appreciate that this is part webinar, part big hug to our industry and our friends. And I think that is the lesson that we're learning, that we got to hug each other. And that's what happens at events. People feel like they're being hugged and connecting. So with that, thank everybody for coming and look to see you again at future BizBash events.
Thank you for
David.
having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.